What's up, my archfiends of chaos? Coming to you with the dark hood and creepy environment for this video. Final Fantasy VII Remake universe, going to the whole thing of time traveling. Now, things of the remake has happened differently than the original, and there's a good reason why that is. And why everything in the remake is far worse than the original. If you've played Zelda Majora's Mask, where where people are getting cursed by Majora and all that stuff, it's kind of the same principle. But this time is messed up with so much that causality has lost the balance, and it's due to one man, which I'm gonna get to that a little later. The reason why that is because one man sent a version of Sephiroth, Cloud yet got to finish, back to the original time of Final Fantasy VII, thus messing with Cloud even way worse, thus messing with time and making the timeline even darker than the original. And this is where I'm saying this is where the fact is everyone's cursing the remake. This is where I'm getting at with the Majora's Mask comparison, because in the remake timeline things are far worse than the original. Worse things happen in the remake universe. And if you played episode Yuffie, which, spoiler alert, seeing Sonon died, Cloud sees Sephiroth a lot earlier. The devastation, even though there were survivors, the devastation of Sector 7 was even more brutal than it was in the original. Not to mention Barrett's untimely death. Barrett's untimely death. Even though he was resurrected by the Arbiters of Fate. This changed things so much that the timeline is a lot darker, and there's going to be some great consequences from this time thing. Sephiroth that's responsible for all this causality. It was the remnant Sephiroth, Malice Sephiroth, that got sent back through time. So now you don't just got the one Sephiroth in this timeline. There's two Sephiroths, possibly even three, because the third one is actually just Genova and Sephiroth disguised. So you got three Sephiroths messing up the world. But the future is the ones doing the most. As in the final boss fight, you accidentally kill the Arbiters of Fate, the only force to stop it. Sephiroth tricks you into killing them. Now, time has gone through a terrible loop, and consequences are a lot worse than before. But this will also be another reason why I think characters like Vincent Valentine are going to be even more important. Since Vincent Valentine is possessed by chaos in this, in this timeline as well. Chaos is going to be a lot stronger than he ever was. Chaos's biggest duty is to purge all evil, purge life forms if things got too evil and too dark. That's why, and so it's going to be harder for Vincent to control chaos in this timeline than it was before, with only just Genova Roth and regular Sephiroth terrorizing the world, and Shinra. It was bad enough as it is. Now it's far worse because there's another force at hand that's messed up the entire timeline. And I think we know who this character is. This is a character that's been in Shinra's archives for a long time. That's even far worse than Sephiroth, if possible. And yes, it is possible. This was not Sephiroth's plan. The future Sephiroth did not plan this. I think there was a deal to be struck for Sephiroth's safety from the hands of Cloud and Evan children. After Kadaj fused with the Genova cells and became Sephiroth. If he worked for Genesis, and it's Project G. I just gave up the name, so just now took that the mystery. But You just remember the name Genesis for later on, because it's going to be very important. But sending future Sephiroth to the past to mess up time was probably not his idea at all. But doing this, G, or Genesis, since we already spoiled the name, pretty much can make Sephiroth free from Jenova. So now Sephiroth gets to do his own thing. So future Sephiroth is still acting on his own, but as long as he incites chaos and darkness to the world. As that Sephiroth at this point became nothing but darkness. If you think about Sauron from Lord of the Rings, after Sauron lost his human body and was confined to the ring and became the flaming eyeball in the tower, that's what Remnant Sephiroth is. That's why he can go in Cloud's mind and messes up his mind even worse. Because knowing that Cloud has the same Jenova cells he has, the same S cells that he has, he torments Cloud way worse. This is not the Sephiroth that we fought in Crisis Core during the Nibelheim incident. This Sephiroth is pure darkness. So much darkness that even who he thought was his mother, Jenova, he no longer obeys her. So we're going to need Vincent and Zack and Sid, all three together with the original party, to take down this awful timeline version of Sephiroth that just came back. Because the Sephiroth that you see in Remake, the one you see in the beginning of the game, isn't Jenova or the real Sephiroth in the Northern Crater. This Sephiroth is Malice Sephiroth. This is Remnant Sephiroth. And even Cloud has future dreams of what's going to happen once you get to Northern Crater. As you can see in the remake of all the Sephiroth clones that sacrifice themselves, it's probably going to be even way bigger scale. Enough that it's going to power up Chaos to its max. So you're probably going to have to fight Chaos, wound Vincent up pretty badly. But this time Vincent will have to train and get control of Chaos to make sure Chaos doesn't take control, because at this point the darkness of the remake timeline is so strong, and it's all because of one man. It could be all one man has done this. There's a reason why I had the audio clip in the beginning and I slipped his name. There's a reason why this all makes sense. It's on the man we call the man we know as G, as you see in the Dirge of Cerberus reports. His name's been erased from Shinra history archives, and explains why Chadley cannot put him in the virtual world, because all data of this man has been erased, but he's still around. The man we call Genesis. Genesis Rhapsodus from Crisis Core. One of the original three friends. Sephiroth's best friend. Zack's strongest enemy he's ever fought. He's back. Nothing forestalls his return. And that's why Deep Ground gets teased earlier, and Yuffie fights Deep Ground earlier than the Dirge of Cerberus timeline. Why everything happens the way it is. We see the Deep Ground facility in the remake. Time has been fucked with so badly by this man because of his return. Genesis has not changed. Genesis has a new goal. And with the cult of Minerva, part 2 of the remake is going to get even crazier. There's nothing going to stop it. The Arbiters are dead. It was all started by Genesis. Even though he got beat by Zack and looked like he was doing good. Remember, Genesis taught the art of rebirth to Nero and Weiss. Because Nero actually slips up in Dirge of Cerberus and says that my knowledge of rebirth was taught by somebody else to Shulk in a flashback. But that the knowledge of rebirth was not Hojo. Because at this point, Nero wasn't aware that Hojo took over Weiss. So it is Genesis. It is G. It always was G. Genesis could do more than just... When he was in his slumber, he was in a meditative state where he can gain more power and knowledge through the life stream, just like Sephiroth could. Remember, I still believe that Genesis clones are still alive in the remake timeline. Probably even in the original timeline, the Genesis clones still exist. There's a few Genesis clones that probably still exist. His ever-looming presence is even more terrifying than Sephiroth, because how dangerous Genesis was. At Crisis Core, Genesis wanted to take out the entire world because he was pissed off of himself degrading. He wanted the glory that Sephiroth had because he believed he was the hero. And now, with him still being around, I still think it was all Genesis. He was planning, coming up with new things. He probably learned how to time travel through the life stream. If Sephiroth could gather up knowledge and recreate himself a body in a life stream, and Genesis is still physically alive and is back to his prime by Minerva, he probably got strong enough to took over even Minerva. So we might even have to fight Minerva. This man is so dangerous. He went back in time, sent Kadash Sephiroth to the past to trick Cloud to killing the Arbiters, so his plan will go out of the hitch. But the Arbiters had one backup plan. The one man that defeated Genesis. Zack being alive. That's what the Genesis didn't have coming. So yes, it was all Genesis. Genesis was responsible for the time traveling events. It was Genesis who sent future Sephiroth back. It was all him. And may the crystal be with you.